yourself while you fix
Yeah, we can get that while he gets that together. Look, so my name's Sean Gourley. I'm from New Zealand. That's a video. We could play that. We could play that. I'm out here from a company called Quid. We're about 2 years old and based out of San Francisco. And for us, the real challenge is that what we're trying to do is to take big data and kind of make it accessible for humans, and particularly the difficult end of big data, which is using big data for the kind of strategic decisions, the ones that are kind of above and beyond what humans can make. Can we get up the PowerPoint? I guess someone else driving. There we go. PowerPoint's not responding. We'll leave PowerPoint. It was overrated. All right, am I in control? There we go. All right, let's go back to the start of this. Let's do it just through videos. All right. We'll come into that. So basically, there's a class of problems in the world, I guess, that are kind of above and beyond. We've got it. We're in. So 1997, this is Kasparov's chess match, and you can kind of see Kasparov there with his hands in his head, and he's just been defeated. The world grandmaster has just been defeated by IBM's Deep Blue machine. And I remember watching this in 1997 and kind of thinking, that's the end of chess. Really, that's the end of the game. It's kind of computers have got us. But, of course, the story never really ends there. It's never really that simple. Kasparov, from this kind of experience, started to create something what he called advanced chess. And advanced chess was, it's not just going to be me by myself taking on another human, but it's going to be me and my machine taking on you and your machine. And what they found really two really interesting things. The world's first advanced chess, or freestyle chess as it's now called, competition took place in 2005. And, what they were able to... Yeah, there we go. What they're able to find was that the human plus a machine was actually better than a machine by itself. And more interestingly, it wasn't a grandmaster playing with a machine, but rather it was the computer scientists that created the machine. And they were the ones that were actually, two guys with a few laptops were actually the ones that won this competition. And that, for me, kind of really spoke volumes about a certain class of decisions. Chess is a very difficult game. And it's one of those things that, if you put a human with the machine, you actually get the best performance out there. And so it's not so much about artificial intelligence as it is about augmented intelligence. How do we take the best data, the best algorithms, the best visualizations, and use that to improve the human cognitive ability, much in the same way as we would use a microscope to improve the lensing of our eyes? And so augmented intelligence for me is really about taking the complexity of the world on one side, using mathematics to simplify it, and then taking the human on the other side, the kind of the simplistic human 1.0, and using visualization to enhance our cognitive abilities. And somewhere in the middle of that, you get what we call augmented intelligence. And that's exactly what Quid is out there doing. We're trying to build the tools that allow these very difficult problems to be made with a combination of machines and humans coming together. And so basically, if you want to take it down, take a large pile of documents and turn it into something a human can actually look at. How do you create the human face of big data? And so to do this, what we're actually able to do is to turn the system onto the data analytics ecosystem. And so in this here, what we actually do, and the first thing we start with, is we actually go and say, well, what is data analytics? There's kind of a lot of thoughts about what it is. So we've got to go and define that. And to do that, we basically take the kind of the global conversation around data analytics. And is that going to... I've got to get out of this probably. Here we go. And so this is the data analytics landscape here. So what we've got is running in Quid at the moment. You see the different nodes represent different topics and idea spaces. We've got down the bottom, up the top there, we've got business intelligence. It's quite a dominant one. Predictive analytics, down here into sentiment and document. And we can kind of go out. It's kind of interesting for the big ones, but also the ones down the bottom that are kind of a little more peripheral. And this is down here into the smart grid part of it. You come out of smart grid, you come down into mesh networks and wireless sensors, kind of up into video surveillance. It gets kind of interesting as it connects into homeland security. You've got regression modeling. And you've got this topic space that now becomes the definition of what you can start to go and look at. Now, what we want to then do is turn that into an entity-based search. So who are the people that are actually carrying this stuff out? What are the companies around there doing this? And so we've got here is a network where the nodes are now companies and the connections are now implicit technological relationships between them. You can see that there, and you can kind of go and explore and kind of play with it. But what you want to do is, the first time you see it, is kind of collapse that space down to something a little more accessible for a human. And so in there you've got your energy management. You come out into the kind of the space there of geospatial, down to cloud-based infrastructure at the bottom. And you can throw that up into another dimension, take it into 3 dimensions, and kind of go around and kind of play and kind of interact. And this is the kind of the thing, if you were an expert in data analytics, this would be the sort of the mental map you would have that you would base strategic decisions on. And what we can do is kind of run this up, throw this up, and so very, very quickly you can kind of know the state of the global landscape. And that's a good place to kind of start with. Once you've got that there, you can kind of collapse it back down and go and dive into some of the details and see kind of what's going on at a low level. You can resize the nodes. Now we're changing this by the amount of capital they've raised. And you can see out here, this is the biosciences space, Pacific Biosciences. You've got all the news and the events kind of going on down the side. This is the original unstructured text that the events kind of come from. You go across to another peripheral through the middle and down to Smart Grid, and you can see Silver Spring Networks and the stuff that they've got going on. And so you sort of go in and kind of explore and kind of play with this landscape, and you can kind of pivot and kind of move and change through it. It's got geographic regions. You run through New York there, you can see different kinds of companies that run in that space. You go and look down here and you see all the things that are kind of exposed to Hadoop. You come down to this little cluster down the bottom, and you want to throw this up and explore it a little more closely. So you chuck up a fisheye lens to go in and kind of play around, look at the different components, kind of get a feel and a sense for what's happening, and it's this sort of tactile experience of an otherwise sort of ambiguous space. Yeah, that's your old company, isn't it? Yeah, you're special up there. So yeah, you can even go up and have a look at Quid and kind of see where Quid is, and take a look there. That's us. We're in that space. You can see Recorded Future and Innovation Query Inc. kind of connected. Go and see the actual original documents within that as well. The cool thing about this is it's all timestamps, because of course all the unstructured information that comes in allows you to kind of play this forwards and backwards. So you can kind of run through and kind of get a sense of where it was in 2000. And the network will actually grow and kind of move, and you can kind of stop that at any time and kind of interrogate, what's going on and what's happening. So this is sort of the landscape that you can kind of go in and explore with. Once you've done this, what's very interesting, I think, is to look at the landscape and say, well, from an ecological point of view, what are the big companies doing in this? What are the likes of SAP? What's their exposure to it? What's American Express doing? What's Visa doing? What's Citibank doing? And this is the kind of questions you can absolutely kind of start to ask. No, that's someone else is driving this. Get out of that one. Here we go. I'll try this one. Here we go. And so this is a sort of an ecological view. You can see the landscape down the bottom, and now you've got Visa and American Express, and these are their acquisitions, their partnerships, and you see Citibank, and you can see them kind of sort of feeding on this landscape almost, and kind of their strategy kind of emerging from within that. You can see up here now, this is SAP, and you can see SAP has a different footprint on this space, and you can see down there with Palantir Technologies connecting to that Jaspersoft, and also down into Open Software Limited. You can dive down into the plane again and kind of see what's going on right there, and that's all around. You can kind of zoom back out, and then you can kind of take a look at one of the one of the investments that Visa made into Square, and it's a really interesting little space at that point. And go and highlight that up, and you can actually see that the 3 main players are actually quite exposed to that. And so we've got American Express and Visa you might expect, but with Citibank kind of making partnerships down to that, it also sort of tells you something about what's going on with them. And so again, you can sort of get a kind of a visceral kind of intuitive kind of feel for the space as it sort of moves. But of course, you might want to dive in a little bit more deeply into American Express. This is American Express. We're now exploring their IP space, their patent space. And this again, all the nodes now are different patents they've filed. You can do topic modeling on that to see the kind of the names, collapse that up into 3-dimensional space, and kind of go and explore that. It's really interesting when you do this, what kind of emerges from what American Express holds as intellectual property. And this is the kind of the space there, again, each node representing a topic that they're involved with. The virtual games, transaction apparatus there, you can kind of go around and play with that. What's in the middle is really interesting there. This is sort of what you'd expect, the contactless payment. But just up above that's quite interesting. There is you've got this sort of healthcare tax space where they've actually filed a lot of intellectual property, and you sort of wonder what's going on there and why they've done that. And so you can kind of go and play with this and get a sense kind of, instead of having to sit down and read the thousands of patents that American Express has filed, it's sort of right there for you. And so I guess, what we're sort of building on this is, let me define a space that's sort of nebulous. Let me go and see the actions of the people that are actually in there. Let me go and explore, from a top level of what's going on, and then let me zoom in and out to the kind of detail level that I actually want. And so for a strategist, if you're kind of sitting there trying to understand big data landscape and how that's affecting publicly traded companies, it's really, really powerful set of tools to kind of sit down and do that with. So that's kind of what we're doing. The fishbowl, yeah, that'll come next. We'll analyze that one. And so yeah, that's kind of the game, and it keeps me interested. So thank you.
Thank you.